I see somebody. Is that you?
Yeah.
Okay. Whew. All right.
Yep, now I see you.
Cool. All right. Well, apologize for the delay, guys. It's definitely some Monday morning activity going on the iPad there. Welcome to Kuhn Academy Live. My name is James Helton, Creative Design Ambassador for Kuhn Hair Cosmetics. And today we're here to talk a little bit about men's design, a new direction. So what does that mean? When we talk about a new direction, doesn't mean a different direction. It just means a new direction. So in a situation like this, when I was coming up with this program, I think, a lot of times when we talk about programs and that sort of thing, a great way to introduce that is to kind of go back and talk about the inspiration for that program. So when I started in the field doing men's education about 5 or 6 years ago, one of my vision for that was to just simply build bridges. And what that means is I wanted to build bridges between what was the really up-and-coming, highly accelerated up-and-coming of the barber industry with the cosmetology industry. And what that really kind of turned into over the course of time was I was doing a lot of fading classes and that sort of thing. So I was in the field teaching fading and whatnot. Even though I had 2 other looks in the program, it was kind of like people were just waiting through the rest of it to get to the fade portion, which is what they showed up for, right? So I've done that for several years. Now, let's back away from that for a moment and talk a little bit about something that's completely unrelated, and that's the shag, right? So the shag haircut has been around forever. It has had its peaks and valleys, ebbs and flows, and is most recently taken off again, right? So when it has taken off in its recent days, now you have curtain fringes and you have some disconnections, or you don't have any disconnection at all. It can be a shaggy long bob. It can be like a shaggy long haircut, that sort of thing. And what that is coming around to is in 1993, when I was, when I was spending my 4 years at Supercuts, all right, we had what was called skater cuts, right? Well, now fast forward to 2021, that's now called an undercut. Back in the day, military cuts, high and tights, which are still called that in a lot of circles. Nowadays, they're, high fades, medium fades, that sort of thing. So names kind of evolve. So what I've been seeing is I taught a program a few months back where I was going to do a men's program for a barbershop. And like I do most programs when I'm trying to prep for that particular program, I go and creep on their social media a little bit, right? And what I found is that these people were doing amazing fade work. Amazing fade work. And I was like, well, to try to teach them to fade or try to show them fading in any capacity is possibly going to bore them to tears. So one of the things that I did see was they had, and I see this a lot, you have a beautiful work of art all the way around the head from the parietal down. And then from the parietal up, you have a haircut. So I was working with them on longer hair. I just received a class request the other day for a men's program, just about 4 days after I decided to do this program and how I was going to do it. And the first thing the person had said when they were assigning me the program was they want to talk more about longer hair, and less about fading. So we can kind of see that the evolution is not that fading is going to go away, because obviously it's a staple. It's always been a staple. It's just evolved in its namesakes, throughout it. My history as a hair professional and the history of hair in general. So that being said, I wanted to take a couple of haircuts that I really, really enjoyed that had fade work in them, right? This cat here, for real, has some nice fade work, as does this. And I think this particular cut plays very well off of Gareth Palmer's haircut, the Pompadour, last week. What you can expect out of this program today is that we're going to talk about direction, we're going to talk about over direction, and we're going to talk about texturing to support the look that you have. I always like to think about hair as, we talk about hair as a canvas. When we do hair color, we're always talking about, making sure that our canvas is even, or making sure that our canvas is clear or clean, or whatever that case may be. So when I envision hair, and if you'll just walk with me real fast on this, when I envision hair as a canvas, I envision it as a canvas that moves. And not like you have a thing and it moves like this, right? I'm talking more specifically like if you had like a piece of paper and it's kind of blowing like that, like the canvas was hanging on a clothesline somewhere, and you were trying to cut that while it was in motion. That being said, as human beings, you would do whatever you had to do to make sure that that canvas was supported so that you could paint your picture more easily on that canvas, so that you could get the result you were looking for a lot easier. And that's really the bones of what this program is today. So I'm going to bring out Ian here. Ian's been with me for a long time. He and I got a lot of miles together in one variation or another. As you can see with Ian here, we've already got his fade pretty much taken care of, because that's not necessarily what this program is about today. And also, as you can probably see, if you can, I'll raise him up just a tick for this particular instance. You can see he has this ducktail action going on in the back. When we're working with hair that is faded short like this gentleman's hair up here, and then we start to transition into the back, a lot of times what we end up doing is pushing this hair forward so that it blends with this here. And what that ends up doing is, shorter hair pushing longer hair, you end up with some motion like this going towards the back, which makes it a little bit more difficult to achieve that result right there. If you want that to wrap around that ear like that, and to have, it's still loose and whatnot, but really have that texture wrap around that ear. One of the ways that we're going to talk about combating that is, if you want hair to push this way instead of coming around that way, you need for the hair to push out. So one of the ways that we do that, remembering short hair pushing long hair, is that we come into this back here. Get him a little wet. I already put a little Too Faced spray on him. I may actually put just a little bit more. And to really help that style develop, I'm going to put just a little bit, and by a little bit I mean about that much, of my classic gel from 1922. The reason I like to use this, as Mr. Palmer talked about last week, I like it due to the viscosity of the product, as well as the fact that it really helps as a cutting tool. And if you were to decide to do any razor work or anything like that, it really helps the razor glide across that hair. So, starting at the top, as you can see, I've already sectioned the back off with a pretty much a vertical horseshoe parting all the way across the top of the head. Starting at the apex, going to just behind the ear here, repeating that on the other side. Now I'm going to draw a vertical parting starting at the apex all the way from the apex or top of the crown to the center of the back. I'm going to take a 1/4 inch parting on either side of that vertically. And that is going to be our guide for the back, as you can see right there. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you need for me to reposition the head in any way, just type those in the comments. And our lovely host on the other end of this, Miss Jessica Mills, the VP of Education and Shows, will feed those to me as they come in. I'm going to drop him down just a tick. There we go. So starting at the top, working our way down, I'm going to take off approximately 1 inch. And that is going to be elevated 90 degrees off the head. And your cutting angle is going to be 90 degrees vertical. So my fingers are 90 degrees vertical. And my elevation is 90 degrees horizontal. Now I'm going to split that down the middle of the back. I'm going to position this a little bit so you can see that right there, maybe a little better. Working to the left, take another vertical parting. Now, we're going to over-direct this to our previous cut section. Picking up my guide there. Over-direct that to the previous cut section. Taking a little less than 1 inch off of that. Which is to be expected due to the slight over-direction. Once again, we're going to split that in half. We're going to work all cross over to here. Over-directing that back again to our previous cut section. You're probably not going to take off very much on this last section here, which is absolutely anticipated and totally fine because you still want to have enough hair to create that fun little wrap around there. So what happens is now, even just having cut that slightly, you can see where this side is starting to become a little more square, where that side is still pretty rounded. A little bit more salon speed on this side. Again, over directing to that center parting in the back, as that is our initial guide. This is going to be overlapping sections, moving from the left to the right. Your sections approximately are going to be about 1 inch. However, if the hair is denser or more dense and you need to take smaller sections, please do so. This is all about control, being able to control that canvas. And if you have more hair than you can see through, then your sections are too big. One of my really good friends, Amber Shriepeck, always talks when she's doing foiling, is that you should always be able to see a newspaper through your foiling section. And that's not too unlike when you're working with design as well. You should be able to easily see your guide through that section. Working our way back down to the nape here. And again,
James, you said you are over-directing?
I'm over-directing to the previous cut section. So when I cut a section, I comb it back down. I split that section in half vertically. I move that hair off to the side, just like that. Pick up another 1 inch section. Then I over-direct that to that back section line, or as we like to put it, to the previous cut section, because half of that is previous cut. Great question. Does that answer the question?
Sure does.
Thank
Can you
you.
tilt a little bit? The back of your head is hiding him.
The back of my head is hiding him?
Yes, we're looking at your beautiful locks.
Well, I mean, as pretty as that is, I'm sure that's not why they showed up today. All right, let's move him maybe that way. So again, vertically right there is our section, or our parting. We're going to take a 1 inch section there. And you're going to comb that back vertically. Or you're going to comb that back to the previous cut section. At this point, whatever will reach is what you're going to cut.
He's a little bit out of frame, and Debbie would like to know, because she loves your gorgeous locks, what glaze did you use on your hair?
So, Debbie, that's an interesting question, because I haven't had my hair glazed in probably 4 months. So what this actually is, and Jessica, you'll love this, this is Cunyu with about 2 pumps of cool brown and 1 pump of the violet colored additives added to the shampoo and conditioner both. So we lifted that to, approximately 8, 9. Normally do glaze it. I was kind of waiting to let it wear off so I could check out that new champagne glaze that just came out with the new semi-color. So we were kind of letting that work its way off. But that's kind of the long and the short of how I ended up with these locks the way they are. Does that answer Debbie's question?
She said nice.
So what we're going to do is, with old Ian here, is raise him up a little bit. I'm going to just take off some of this back tail here a little bit. And I'm just cutting that horizontally, 90 degrees horizontal with the floor, just to give him a little bit more, a little less mullety, but still a little bit of disconnection there. So the top. Hopefully the top will be a little easier to see. So we're going to notice on the top, I have him sectioned down the middle, right? And if you'll notice also, if I can get him close enough, what you'll see is I've taken that fade up a little bit past the parietal ridge. Not quite as high as Gareth took it last week, but because I still want a little bit more width in through here. But in doing this, as stated last week, that keeps this top very symmetrical starting from the back to the front. If not, it would start getting super wide and it would not hold itself up quite as easily. So that said, I'm going to take this from the back as my guide for the top. This is going to be elevated 90 degrees vertically. And our section is going to be 90 degrees horizontal. So 90 degrees vertical is our elevation, and 90 degrees horizontal is our section. Now what I will do is bring this up. I can see my guide through there. Just for your reference, we're going to over-direct this slightly back to the top of the crown. I'm going to cut this with a sawtooth cutting motion. We're going to split that in half. We're going to split that in half, comb this back, and we're going to repeat that same thing, except we're going to have a 90-degree horizontal section across the top. We're going to over-direct that slightly back to the previous cut section, which is right there. And maybe I can let you see easier this way. And we're going to cut that with that sawtooth motion. Repeating the same process all the way to the front. Again, with that really kind of aggressive sawtooth cutting motion that really activates the texture of this cut on the top, creating a really good point of interest, really. Coming across there, just like that. The reason I split this down the center and work one side then the other side, obviously, again, is for control. My hands are relatively big, as you can see. However, that is a pretty broad surface when you look at that. And I always want to be able to control the hair as I cut it. Working our way across that top. This is a relatively quick and easy haircut to perform in the salon. You'll notice that it'll still be somewhat disconnected as it hangs to the side, right there. And that's totally fine. That's exactly how Ian here wants it. He told me that before everybody showed up today. And that last section. So as we had discussed last week in Garrett's program, these can get a little floppy. You know what I mean? Obviously, one of the ways to support that is product, which again we'll use the 1922 Classic Gel on that top. But I really want this to be nice and full, just like our inspo pick up here. But I also want it to stay. So that's where we come into the discussion on the support of this haircut. Always making sure our hair is nice and wet, not dripping, but wet. I'm going to switch gears here to our razor. So I have a pattern I like to work with a lot, and I always like to refer to it as Argyle, or just like the sweater, but kind of like our guile, as in our guys. So working in a diagonal back pattern, just from behind the ear to the center of the back, that is approximately 45-degree diagonal back. We're going to come in about mid-shaft and really take our razor and lightly glide across the top of that. Our razor is about 15 degrees in pitch, which if that's horizontal, or if that's completely vertical, 15 degrees in pitch is about like that. And what this is going to do also is, obviously, it's going to release a little bit of that bulk right there, but it is also going to help push this hair forward as well. We're going to come in with another diagonal back parting, 45 degrees, and do the same thing. Your razor is going to be held parallel to that parting. The pitch on the blade is going to be about 15 degrees. And your stroke is going to be very, very light. Having that classic gel in there really helps that razor to glide across that and to encourage that hair to come forward just like that. One last section for that side. This is what I would call or refer to as quite a free-handed technique. You want to look for how the hair is behaving, and is it behaving the way you want it to? If the hair is very bulky, obviously you could do this a little more aggressively. If the hair is not quite as bulky, then you would need to be a little gentler with that, right? So this has essentially came all the way across the back of the head, going this way, which is down and to the left. Yeah, down and to the left here. So we're going to now start on the opposite side of the head, coming from just behind the ear, drawing a diagonal back parting at 45 degrees towards the center of the back, and just letting that moisture in the hair and gel helping you hold that section a little bit more firm.
James, could you also use thinning shears versus a razor?
The question is, could you also use blending shears instead of a razor? The answer is absolutely yes. Now bear in mind, blending shears are going to create a much softer result. So if you have hair that is coarser and you use a blending shear, you may not get as much push as you might need. By contrast, if you're working on relatively fine hair and you are still wanting this kind of push, then a blending shear would absolutely be a great alternative. It's a great alternative anyway. Just make sure that when you are using a blending shear that you know the result you're going to get before you start, and does that result align with the result that you want to achieve. You could also use a shear. If you were really wanting a little bit more of an aggressive look across that back, you could come in. What I would do at that point is I would comb all this hair diagonally across the back of the head. Just like that. Diagonal back and down. And then come in with either my blending shear. Now, if you're going to use a blending shear, here's an important tip. Make sure that this straight blade is what's on the scalp. All right, so you're going to come in, you're going to insert the blade here, and in a chattering motion, you're going to walk that across the back of the head. Walk that across the back of the head. In the same motion that you did with the razor across diagonal back. Now, if you wanted a little bit more of an aggressive turn in that, you could also use a standard shear, like this guy here. And again, I would use my other hand to support this. That way you are pretty shored up on that. And then insert the shear just behind the ear here, and wait for it to push the hair a little bit before you start to chatter that shear across the back. And when I say chatter, I mean you're not doing much more than that all the way across that back, because you definitely don't want to be too aggressive until you kind of get a feel for it. If you want that push there a little more, working with a shear, you would come in 1 comb width off the hairline, which is going to be approximately right here, and a diagonal forward motion with the shear, with his chin as the target. Like your shear is pointing towards his chin. I'll move him back here a little bit. Your shear pointing towards that chin. And you're really lightly chattering that shear through there. As you can see, that really creates a really nice soft forward motion with that hair so that it doesn't get really ducktaily, but you can still maintain that really super sharp fade in front of the ears here, and then that comes back and you have a little bit more length to play with there in the back. Now, since we're talking about blending shears and standard shears, as you can see here in the front, Ian's hair likes to get a little floppy right here. See where it kind of comes up and just boom, collapses off to the side. What I would do, or what I will do in Ian's case, is you'll comb that hair back. Obviously his pomp needs a little support. You'll push that forward a little bit, just gently, and where you see that hair start to want to collapse in the front, that's where you'll provide the support. So again, much like the back, you'll comb that hair back and up where you want it to sit. Give it a little push, and where you see that hair start to kind of collapse, insert that blending shear again, the straight blade part to the head. Here I would make sure that my teeth, the cutting teeth here, are going towards the back. So I'm going to insert that teeth aiming towards the back and just chatter that shear through there. Now what you'll see is that Ian's hair will start to support itself. Like now if you comb it back and push it, it's really starting to pop up in the front. You can see that real nice pop there where it's wanting to sit up and not collapse in on itself. Same way with his other side here. I will insert here, and you're literally working in pretty much a diagonal back and forth across the head. What that does, obviously, is gives you some shorter hairs here in this front to really, really support the look that you're trying to achieve. I will probably get a little more aggressive where this disconnection occurs here and come in with my shear and just chatter that across the top. If you want, you can literally just comb it, lay it down, push it gently where it kind of pops up a little bit, and work across that top. Now, you're probably asking, does this guy really do this in the salon, or is this just something he wants to be fancy with on TV? This is something that I work with on my clients quite often. Now here's a studio tip on that. If your client is new to this type of directional cutting or texturizing or whatever you want to call it, you may want to introduce them to it a little gently. Because I have a lady that comes to me, and the other day she wears an extremely short haircut through here, but her top she's trying to let grow out. And I'm just, I'm being me, just going along, and I reach in there and work across that top with my straight bladed shear, and I go to comb it, and all that hair falls out, and she literally was like, "What was that? I thought I was growing my hair out." I'm like, yeah. We're just making sure this stays where it needs to. Now, that really does improve how that hair sits up off the head. A little tough texture. Tough texture is a product that creates quite a bit of volume as well as texture, obviously. What I love most about this product is it is relatively matte and not quite so shiny. I will try to not bore you to death I'll try to get this dry pretty quick so that we can see it finished. Obviously coming in with my vent brush here, coming up over the top here. When you're working on the side where that disconnection occurs, I would really blow that hair up and away from that. And then coming into the back here, push that hair forward just lightly there. Essentially, blowing it dry exactly how you cut it. I believe that if we do that, that really helps to support, as you can see that there, that really comes up off the head, and that underneath there is also working to support your look. Working with that vent brush. One of the things that I'll say about men's hair design is educate them a little bit more studiously as you work their hair. As you're performing the service, educate them a little bit more on why you're doing what you're doing. I believe the men's retail market is one of the most wide open markets there is. If people will just tell them why they're doing what they're doing. And educate them on the value of the product that you're using and why they need it. Because if you can give them the value and the why behind what you're doing, they will do whatever you ask. And if you want a little extra lift out of that top in the front, incorporate your round brush here. And really give that some direction more towards the back. As well as picking that hair up a little bit on the side. and on that side as well. I think one of 1922's most unsung heroes is the tinted dust. Tinted dust is tinted hair powder in our 1922 range that really adds a lot of texture to the hair, helps to keep that look matte, just like the tough texture. And you may ask, like, well, what if I don't want it? What if I want the use of the tinted dust, but I want to add a little, just a little sheen to that? If you'll put a little world-class wax, a little, emulsify that in your hands, work that through, and again, working that through almost exactly how we cut it and exactly how we'd like that to lay. And his hair with no hairspray, standing up quite a bit on its own. Now, one of the things I'll say about this haircut is, obviously, if you're going to wear this haircut, it is going to have to be blown dry. So that's a conversation that you will need to have with your Ian before we start down that road. And that is, does he blow dry his hair? Is he willing to blow dry his hair? And does he know how to achieve this result if he is? So that is, those are conversations that are definitely needed and most certainly advised. So if you like that, give me some claps, some stars, some hearts in those comments. How are we doing, Jess?
Fantastic. That is a banging haircut.
Well, thank you. It's a little aggressive in a couple of different ways. I really liked the use of texture on this guy here, but I really liked the overall finish on this top one, which is why I chose it for him today. Now, keep in mind, if you had a short haircut like this bottom one here, the same texturizing techniques would apply here as well. You would just have shorter hair, and but it would still be working in those diagonal patterns across the top of the head, as well as you're having a little bit more of a. Do you see that? Those words just flew out of my mouth. You'll have a little bit more of a disconnection due to the fact that his is a little longer in the back, but a lot of the same technique, because that back is still really pushing out this way, not wrapping around the back of the head in a ducktail or ducky style fashion. So that is literally the long and the short of it today. I really appreciate all you guys coming on today and hanging out with us. We have one more little item on the agenda, and that is on Kuhn Professional's Facebook page, we are having a giveaway of a retail bar and products to stock it with. I don't know about you, but, when I go to the store or the furniture store and look at an entertainment center and it's got a 70-inch TV sitting in it, I want the whole thing, right? Like the 70-inch TV and the entertainment center. I think it's a load of crap that they advertise that I get the entertainment center and I can't take the TV. What we're doing is we're giving you the entertainment center and a TV. So go enter that drawing. Just click on the link in Cume Professional's Facebook page. Get yourself entered for a retail bar and $1,200 worth of retail products. Is that right, Jess?
It's the retail bar and 48 full-size products. Value total is $1,250.
So the retail bar, 48 full-size products?
Yep, and you can also see the link in the comment box.
And there's a link in the comment box. Oh, we did it all, but enter you for it yourself. So thank you again, guys. Please join us next, I think next Monday is Memorial Day here, so I don't think we're having a live that week. But join us the following week for our next Facebook Live, and keep an eye on Cume Professional Facebook page for any updates on programs in the future. Thank you very much. Stay safe out there, guys, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.